Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Negishi. With me tonight, with about an NFL draft 2025, officially 8 days away, it is my good friend, the YouTuber from his own YouTube channel, DaWindyCity Production. It is none other than Rishab Skiri. Rishab, it's been a long time. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hope you are having a wonderful evening. I know last time we were looking forward to having you and Coach Nick Whalen from up in Wisconsin, who was kind enough to join us. And you were involved in a train accident. Not, of course, not literally you being the sole victim, but you were kind of, I think, on a metro train, and then just kind of crashed it with a car, and then you were unfortunately were unable to get back in time to join us. But thanks to Nick Whalen for going through the entire hour or so by himself. And it was a very good conversation. And, Rishab was kind enough to reschedule and join us tonight. It was originally scheduled for just over a half an hour ago, but unfortunately, because of my work schedule, we had to kind of push it back to 9:30, 8:30 Eastern, 8:30, Central Time. And Rishab, NFL draft, is about 8 days away. And, you and our regular guest, Philip Charles Van der Hayden, is going to be going up there fairly shortly. How excited are you right now in terms of, going up there and just, waiting for this to be over with because we waited such a long time for this.
Yeah, so I'm actually most likely not going up anymore. I want
really?
to go up. Yeah, we didn't schedule anything entirely. So Phil is definitely going up, and his co-hosts are going up, and maybe a few other people.
Right.
I have a busy next couple weeks, so I might be going up Saturday and just staying there for, half the
like
day.
A day or two.
Yeah, maybe just like day trip, basically go there and back. But I won't be there day one, day two, unfortunately. But I'll be watching from home, and I'm really excited. Like it's really passed by fast, like the last month, and it's just cool to like finally have some football content again to discuss. And this is going to be a very important draft for the Bears, with them having 4 picks in the top
75.
75, and this could be like a foundational class for the Chicago Bears. So really excited to see what they do this year. I'll definitely be streaming probably, so if you want to join that stream, if you're not doing anything, definitely feel free.
Oh yeah, I'll be very, very honored. I've been on your stream the last several years, 2023 and 24, on your live stream. And I should be available on Thursday night again. Hopefully I'll be back in time for the Bears pick. It's a little bit, iffy if I'm forced to go to a client site. It's about a half an hour away, but I still will be able to join you guys either way on all 3 days. If you need some guests to, kill time, whether you're doing with, Phil or somebody else, if you need somebody to join me, as a fill-in guest, listen, I'll be more than happy to do that, however long you need me. So
no, for sure. Definitely for the Bears pick, maybe like pick 5 to 15. Could even our first round, but it seems like most people's interest kind of peaks in the first like 15, 16 picks. So
right. And I'd be more than happy to join you guys even after the Bears pick is over. Just kind of go over, who exactly they pick, what kind of a player he is, and how that's going to impact the team in 2025 from a depth perspective as well. So I'll be very, very honored to be doing a live stream with you on all 3 days, or any one of the 3 days, whatever you need me. So you've been there for me, so it's the least I can do to kind of make things interesting, which I'm sure you're probably going to bring in a lot of other guests to join you for the live stream as well. And if you need any help with guest booking and stuff like that, let me know as well. So
yeah, 100%. It's going to be a great time.
All right. Absolutely. All right, let's before we dive into the NFL draft conversations, let's kind of start with the breaking news that happened just several hours ago. I'm sure you're going to be doing some video on your own channel as well about this. Linebacker TJ Edwards just got extended, earlier tonight. I believe it's 2 years, $20 million, according to a lot of verified reports, with $16.6 million guaranteed. Now, I don't think none of us really expected this happening. This comes just a few days after, the Bears extended Kyler Gordon, the nickelback, over the weekend. Give me your thoughts on the extension. I kind of like this move. 2 years to $20 million. I think it's a good move. TJ Edwards is somebody that is actually from Lake Villa, if I'm not mistaken. He's a local player. Went to Wisconsin. Surprisingly, he was undrafted. Was UDFA. Actually undrafted free agent. Signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. Became a really, really great player. Parlayed that into a big contract with the Bears. When he signed, I think it was a 3-year, 18, 19, something like that. It was a really, really friendly contract. And now he gets a 2-year extension. I think he's a leader on that defense. I know his last year had a little bit of a drop off in tackles, going from 155 in 2023 to 129 or 124, something like that, somewhere in that range. There was a bit of an issue with the coverage, I think, with him last year. But nonetheless, I think this is a smart move, which certainly doesn't impact your bottom line or, the salary cap by much. Your thoughts on the TJ Edwards extension, Rishab?
Yeah, I like the extension. I think it makes perfect sense. It's very little money for the most part. It's only like $10 million per year, which isn't that much money for a top level linebacker. He's last year he had a little bit of a down year, like you mentioned. But he's still only 28 years old or 29, I believe.
I believe so. Yes.
Still has, I feel like a couple more years left to really good play out of him. And it's a very short-term extension. So even if he doesn't do well, it's not going to impact you too much. But he has been the most reliable tackler on the Bears. He's been a very good just leader too. I feel like in some ways, he's been holding down the middle of that defense. Edmonds had a very bad year last year. So I think Edwards was the more reliable linebacker that we've had the past couple of years in terms of just overall playmaking, run defense, all that stuff. So I think it makes perfect sense, especially with the salary cap going up and up and up. You have top level players making 15-20 million per year, and to only pay him 10 million, I think is honestly maybe a steal of a contract if he keeps on playing like he did in 2023 when he was a top maybe top linebacker that season. I think it's just a really, really good deal by Ryan Poles. And I like that he locks up these players before they hit free agency so he doesn't have to overpay or compete with other teams like he did with Cole Kmet, like he did with I guess Jalen Johnson was almost a free agent, but for the most part, he's done good on these extensions early, like for Kyler Gordon, for example, too, where if you don't let him hit the market, then you get a pretty good deal, and that's what he got with TJ Edwards.
Mm-hmm. And then, as I mentioned earlier, several days before, they also extended Kyler Gordon as well, 3-year, $40 million deal as one of the top nickelbacks in the NFL right now. Give me your thoughts on Kyler Gordon's extension and where he kind of fits in the current coaching staff, in your opinion.
Yeah, Kyler Gordon extension also made a whole lot of sense. This was one player that I thought the Bears for sure had to extend in the secondary. I mean, he just made so many big time plays last couple seasons. He's had interceptions, he's had 4 fumbles. He's been the most reliable tackler too in the secondary. Really good run defense. He's blitzing too. He's all over the field. And in today's NFL, you need a top level nickelback to defense with how many good receivers that other teams have. So, I think to lock him in at it's not a cheap price because he is the highest paid nickelback in football now. But like if he waited for another year for him to hit free agency, he could have gotten even more than this amount. Like he could have gotten maybe another 2-3 million per year more, from this amount if he had another good season. And at that point, maybe he could have even left the Chicago Bears. So I think rewarding Kyler Gordon, who's been such a leader, model citizen, and just gotten better and better every single season, it sends a good message to the locker room too, that if you do work hard, if you get better every single year, Ryan Poles will reward you with a lot of money. I mean, he made him the highest paid nickel in football, so it's not a cheap contract for sure, but it's definitely a well-deserved contract with everything he's been for the Bears. And I think Dennis Allen can also use him in more creative ways than Eberflus even did. Kyler Gordon has the ability to blitz the quarterback too, on those nickel blitzes, and he's really fast. He can jump. He can get his hands up. Really reliable tackler too. So if Dennis Allen wants to use him as a blitzer occasionally, if he wants to move him around in the slot on the inside, it's going to be very interesting to see what Dennis Allen has in mind for Kyler Gordon. So really excited about this.
So I write for the fansided.com for those who are not familiar with. I've been writing for their NFL news page, and I happen to write about the extension as well. I highlighted about this Kyler Gordon being the very first draft pick by Ryan Poles. That was back in 2022. Excuse me. If you remember, that was the year that the Bears didn't have a first round pick because they gave up to move up from 20 to 11 to pick Justin Fields that year. And the Bears didn't have, they only had I think 2 second rounders out of it. And that was the year that they drafted Kyler Gordon very first, I think at 39th overall. Coincidentally, they have the 39th overall pick in the second round in next Friday night also. So hopefully there's a bit of a luck there as well. And then they also drafted Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State in that same draft to fix the secondary. And I agree with you. Re-signing a player like Gordon and rewarding for his effort is crucial. And it also rewards players who work hard, put their head down, and then produce on the field. I know a lot of people think that Kyler Gordon, and if you're not familiar with Gordon, especially if you're not a Bears fan, and see his highlights, he does the the Spider-Man backflips and then the shooting the web whenever he makes plays, and nothing more than that. But he is a very important nickelback. The day or two before, I think the Houston Texans signed Jalen Petrie to a very similar contract, and he was also a nickelback as well. So, the Bears, Ryan Poles wanted to take care of him. He said that in the annual NFL meetings last week or so. And, he lived up to his own words. So for Poles to, I don't want to say vindicated, for the pick for Gordon, because that was his pick, as we all know. And by God, that's something that he could, I think, hang his hat on and say, yeah, that's the guy I picked. That was my pick. I'm responsible for that guy, and I'm rewarding for that guy. And, with a 3-year contract, literally, you're still young enough to hit the market. I think those are the norms that we're starting to see a lot more now. You don't see that, compared to football, obviously the longevity is a lot shorter than, say, NBA or, Major League Baseball. So, for 3 years, if you can get anything out of Kyler Gordon in that period, he's only 25 right now. I think he will be 26 when the season happens, or sometimes during the season. Your best football days are still ahead of you, and you could still become a free agent at 28 or 29, and then you could still get a decent contract, whether it be with the Chicago Bears or somebody else. So I think this is a very shrewd move, nice way of sending a message that if you do your job, and if we start winning games more and more, you're going to be rewarded. And I think this is a very good thing. And, it also vindicates that Poles always wanted to, build this team through the draft. And when your picks hit, you want to keep those types of players as long as possible. That's what good teams do. You don't go out there and spend money on a bunch of free agents like when Ryan Pace used to do that and put us in a salary cap hellhole before Poles was hired to gut the team. So I don't think no one wants to go through that or wants to relive those days, at least not yet. So I think this is a very, very good, in my opinion, and the one that hopefully will give a strong message to younger guys who are expected to hit free agency in a couple of years, that you will be taken care of if you do your job, especially on the field. All right. Let's move on to the draft, which obviously, again, is 8 days away. You've been hearing a lot about the rumors and all that kind of stuff right now, Rishab. And listen, let me ask you straight up: who is your dream pick? Who is the kind of the best scenario for the Chicago Bears at number 10, and who's like the worst pick or worst case scenario where you want to throw up? Who the Bears pick at number 10?
Yeah, so best case scenario, I've been consistent on this, is still Ashton Genty. I think he is the one player that the Bears don't have at all, on this team. We don't have an elite running back. He would be an elite running back for the Bears for at least 5 years, if not longer. I think he has the contact balance, the toughness, the physicality. He's such a good guy off the field too. He's a leader in the locker room. He just has all the a top 10 pick. I don't care that he plays running back. I know it's a less value position, but we've seen teams around the NFL really rely on top running backs. Like the Eagles, they won a Super Bowl with a top running back. They had a good offensive line too, but Saquon really pushed the Eagles more than what they were with DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift only had 1,000 yards with the Eagles O-line. Saquon Barkley had 2,000 yards. So an elite running back does make a big difference. I just think that for Caleb Williams, for his development, to have an elite run game would help him a lot. When last year he was the only one doing anything. He was passing the ball 45, 50 times a game, just doing everything by himself. So huge fan of Ashton Genty. I think if he comes to the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson can use him and DeAndre Swift in a similar way in some ways in which he used David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, even though I feel Genty is not exactly like Montgomery. He's smaller and faster. So it is interesting because some have said that Genty is a mix of Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So that'd be pretty cool to get that on the Chicago Bears offense for Ben Johnson. And as for my worst case scenario, I'm trying to think of who would be a horrible pick, but
I'll give you one.
Yeah,
Shamar Stewart at number 10 would
oh yeah, I agree with that.
I am going to die, literally. I'm just going to collapse, and I am just going to lose myself. I'm sorry,
No, yeah, he has all the physical tools, but he has no production. There's
right
development that has to happen. Maybe he's a good second round pick or third round pick because you can develop him.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
the way today's NFL is gone, where some people feel testing is the only thing that matters. That's crazy. You still have to be a good football player to be drafted top 10. So I don't think, that would be a horrible pick. And I'm trying to think who else. I'm not a huge Kelvin Banks fan. I'd be okay with it if Ben Johnson thinks he's gonna be a star tackle, but I just don't see star level tackle play in him. Out of all these tackles, I think that Armand Membu and Will Campbell could have star potential, but Membu is a right tackle and Campbell has shorter arms, which might impact him to some extent. With Kelvin Banks, there's just been moments where it's getting overpowered. He kind of reminds me of Braxton Jones in some ways, and I feel if you already have Braxton Jones, you might as well just stick with Braxton Jones. But at the same time, Kevin Banks would be on a rookie contract. Well, Braxton's going to get paid next season, so there are some savings you can get there. But I wouldn't be a huge fan of that pick. I also wouldn't hate it just because at this point I'm really trusting what Ben Johnson does. If he even selects a player that I don't like I'm still gonna like try to trust him and just see what happens. But yeah, that's as far as best and worst case, that's my picks right there. But it's like I mentioned, like there's not too many picks I would absolutely hate in this draft, just because this is just such a weird draft where the talent from picks number 7 or maybe picks number 5 to 25 is very, very similar. Like it's honestly like it kind of sucks to be picking top 10 this year because there's not very many blue chip talent level players besides for a guy like Ashton Genty or some of the other like Abdul Carter or Mason Graham. But besides for that, I just don't see too many like true star level prospects this year.
Right. I am all for trading down, but the thing is, if you want to trade down, you got to have a partner who wants to trade down. The team that wants to move up. Okay, and it's been that the draft is that that lacks a top end talent. I think at top 10, where the Bears are picking, they might have somebody that maybe that they would fall down, that teams in the late teens or 20s that might want to move up, but then you're going to have to agree on the compensation part as well. When the Bears move up to pick Justin Fields, they ended up giving up their number 1 pick the very next year. So fortunately, because I think the Giants weren't drafting all that well, I think I don't even remember who they used on that pick. I know it was somewhere in the top 10, unfortunately, but I don't think it was one of those picks that says the Giants fleeced us and we got nothing out of it. So, but I digress. But the point is, you definitely need somebody that the teams that wants to move up to pick one. Shadir Sanders, could he still be at 10? Could Tyler Warren still be at 10? And that the Bears might want to say, hey, you want to move, you want to take Tyler Warren before us, at the same spot as number 10, just give us what we want, and then hopefully we can work out a deal or something like that. So yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult. I would probably feel that the Bears might find themselves stuck in number 10 with a lot of worst case scenarios where Membu, Campbell, Mason Graham, Ashton Genty are all gone, and now what are you left with? That's the kind of scenario that we the Bears fans might be forced to ask ourselves. The players that I just mentioned are all gone, and then there isn't anybody that's worth moving up. The teams in the late teens aren't willing to budge and isn't going to give up a high pick for whether it's this year or next year. They're stuck at number 10, and then hopefully, yes, with a Ben Johnson in, and then hopefully Ryan Poles has learned from his past lessons, and that we're going to get somebody very, very decent, and then somebody will hopefully, who are ready to play. We don't have the luxury of waiting for somebody to sit behind the bench and learn from this. That's not what number 10 picks do. You better be able to come in and ready to contribute. So, hopefully, the Bears are smart enough to make that decision and then get the right player in there. Now, among the the names that Nicholas has thrown out there, Mike Green, a very exciting prospect. Somewhat undersized. Fortunately, Dennis Allen has experience working with the undersized defensive linemen when he was with Denver as a defensive coordinator. I believe that was the year they drafted Von Miller, and we all know how that turned out pretty well. And then when he was with the Raiders as a head coach in 2014, unfortunately, that was the year that they fired him somewhere in the mid-seasons. They drafted Khalil Mack, who we all know, who are we're very, very familiar with, and we were fortunate enough to see Mack do a lot of great things for the Chicago Bears, and that similarity certainly has give us hope that like Nicholas said, Mike Green would be that guy. But as Nicholas pointed out here, he's had problems off the field. For those who are not familiar with Mike Green's issue, he was accused of sexual assault while he was at University of Virginia. and he ended up leaving the program or kicked out of the program or whatever. So he ended up leaving in 2023. He ended up going to Marshall, and then he blew up this past season. 17 sacks, leading the nation, All-American, all kinds of accolades. But like Nicholas says, the off the field problems, he did address it, but he didn't didn't confirm or deny it strongly. So there is that issue where the teams would have to really, really do their due diligence, especially in the world we live in, about sexual assaults and batteries and stuff like that. That could come back to haunt you. And just because you're drafted, your trouble is far from over. Because you're going to be tempted with the money, and then the women, drugs, and all that other kind of stuff. Which, of course, it's not precluded to Mike Green, but also every other draft picks, that you have to fight off temptations, and you really, really now have to put in your craft now to become the best professional that you can be, not just on the field, but also off the field as well. Does Mike Green excite you, or do you feel like the off the field stuff that's kind of like kind of makes you turn him off, turn you off? Excuse me.
Yeah, it's hard to say until you know exactly what happened. I'm sure teams are doing their due diligence, but if there's even a doubt, I don't think the Bears are going to draft him. I mean, with what Ryan Poles has done so far with the Chicago Bears, he stayed clear of Jalen Carter, even though on paper was the number one prospect in that draft. He could have been the number one or number two pick that year, but applied to number 10. So I think if Ryan Poles passed on him, who Jalen Carter was not even convicted of anything. He did reckless driving, which is horrible, and
which, by the way, unfortunately, I think he and the teammates were recklessly driving, and I think it killed one of the staff members. Not necessarily the car that Jalen Carter was driving, but one of the other players on that team that got killed, and he was also charged with a DUI or something like that in that accident.
Oh,
right?
yeah, but that's the thing. If he passed on him, I just can't see him. So I think the guy with sexual assault problems potentially, and even before Poles, under Virginia McCaskey, I know Virginia McCaskey passed away since then, but the Bears have never really taken any guys with any sexual assault or anything like that. I can't even remember there was a player on the 49ers previously that we signed for I forgot his name, but there was someone we signed back in 2014, 2015 who had a sexual assault or battery case, and we dropped him immediately. I forgot his name right now, but it just shows the Bears don't really mess with that type of stuff, which good for them. If you have problems like that off the field, I don't think it makes any sense to draft him that high at number 10, which sucks because he is such a good player on the football. He could very easily be a top 5 or top 10 pick this year if not for that.
Absolutely.
The problems off the field kind of make it hard to project where he's going to go.
Yeah, the Bears historically, I don't think they've drafted a lot of guys with shady past, thankfully. Now, the couple of things that I can think of, maybe Rishab will probably remember this. When the Bears went to the Super Bowl back in 2006, I remember Tank Johnson got busted for gun charges. You remember that one? I don't know if you're too young to remember.
In 2006, you said?
Yes.
I must have been too young.
Okay, yeah. So that was, I think, if I'm not, what I'm trying to remember is that they got into a fight at a gun range. I think it was with Fred Miller, the offensive lineman, along with Olin Kreutz. They got into a fisticuff, and then I think also, Tank Johnson got busted for gun charges because not at the gun range, not was stepping from the gun range fight, but overall because I think he was possessing illegal firearms of sorts.
Yeah.
He wasn't suspended by the NFL. Lengthy. I think he played with the Bears pretty much the rest of the season all the way into the Super Bowl. But after that, he was never the same player, unfortunately. He came through the same draft in which he and Tommy Harris was drafted. So what could have been. Tommy Harris got, but he was a great in the first couple of years, but then the injuries slowed him down significantly, unfortunately. And then I'm trying to remember Sam Hurd, if I'm not mistaken, the receiver in 2011. I think he got busted even before playing before for the Bears that season. I think he was busted for drug possession, not necessarily for possessing, but I think it was with intent to traffic and sell. So I think it was a really crazy story about Sam Hurd and how he got busted. Um, Let me pull up an information about him. He was a former cowboy. Yeah. He was arrested in Chicago for attempting to purchase and distribute large quantities of cocaine and marijuana, and faced drug charges, federal drug charges in Dallas Division of the North District of Texas. So he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. This was actually, he was arrested in Chicago while he was playing for the Bears in December of 2011. So it's a crazy stuff, but overall, those are like the two major things that I can think of when it comes to the Bears players, like, getting into, crazy, headline for all kinds of wrong reasons type of stuff, And I think you might remember more than 10 years ago, Lance Briggs crashed his own Lamborghini.
Yeah.
But that was like not a DUI stuff, fortunately. But that was, of course, when Lance was kind of like on his own, opening a restaurant, wasn't really, into working out. And of course, that was kind of like the first sign of trouble when the Bears completely collapsed in the Mark Trestman's second year. So, yeah, those are the kind of things that I remember. Nicholas points out about Jim McMahon was a known party guy and stuff like that. Of course, that was like such a different time, 40 years ago, when there was no social media and stuff like that was widely kind of acceptable. Not just, of course, in football, but in all in every sport, pretty much. If you remember the 1986 Mets, the New York Mets, that's a like the baseball version of the Bears. The following year when they won the World Series. You should see their 30 for 30 ESPN documents if you've never seen it. It's a well done document about the crazy stuff about, drinking and doing all kinds of drugs on the airplane, when they're traveling. What was that?
Is it on Netflix or is it just like on ESPN 30 for 30, you said?
It is on ESPN 30 for 30. That the Miracle Mets. It's a 4-part series. It is crazy. Just Dwight Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, Keith Hernandez, Ron Darling. There are all kinds of top stars from that team that was got busted for drugs. Strawberry and Gooden, the two main culprits, unfortunately, that haunted them throughout their entire career and even once their playing career was over. Yes, it is ESPN 30 for 30. It is a great series, so go check it out. If it's kind of like, you remember, okay, so this is what the Chicago Bears were actually like back in the heydays too. So anyway, so another popular name being thrown around at number 10 is Tyler Warren, the tight end. Rishab, give me your thoughts on tight end Tyler Warren, and what are your emotions like? From a scale of 1 to 10, like, will you be excited or you'd be like, meh? That's another cold commit, in your opinion.
Kind of tough to say because I'm a big Cole Kmet fan, so
yeah,
I don't see any way in which they coexist. Like, sure, like you could run 12 personnel, but I feel like if we do draft Tyler Warren, we're gonna trade Cole Kmet next year. Like, I don't see us having two high profile tight ends on the same team. It's worked before a little bit, with Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. Like, but it's very rare that you see two like top level tight ends being used like in the same offense. And the Bears already have so many pass catchers. Like, we already have Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, whoever the Bears draft at running back high this year, he's going to be a pass catcher too. DeAndre Swift is a pass catching back. Cole Kmet can catch passes too. So I just don't think this offense needs a tight end right now. But at the same time, if Ben Johnson thinks Tyler Warren can be a weapon, on this offense, and that's a key word there, like weapon, not just a tight end, but like an all-around weapon that could make Caleb's job a lot easier, that could go off and be a Pro Bowl level player, then I'd be okay with drafting him. It's just, for me, it's kind of hard to like get over the fact that we already have Cole Kmet, and like Cole Kmet, I still think is a top level tight end. Like I think
Right.
the top 10 to 12 tight end, which that's pretty good. Like, and he's a hometown guy, and like he's fun to root for. So it kind of sucks having to stomach like him having a much lesser role on this team if we do draft Tyler Warren. And at the same time, I feel like Colston Loveland is also similar to him in terms of ability. So, you know,
I think he's more of a stretch, you know, like a receiver type, more so than anything else. I think that I know Matt Miller on ESPN. I think he went on Waddle and Selby today, and he also tweeted that, you know, that he is a better fit for, you know, he takes Loveland over Warren, and then he also likes him as a better fit for the Chicago Bears more so than Tyler Warren there. So, yeah, I'm very curious. You know, if Tyler Warren like is the only, you know, available player at number 10, you know, the 12 personnel will be very, very interesting, you know, because somebody is going to have to be sacrificed for, you know, in that offense, because obviously means 12 personnel means one running back, 2 tight ends. And, you know, when you have 2 tight ends, you know, you're not going to send both of them running routes and then, you know, expose for them more, you know, out on the, you know, without some sort of a blocking. So this is going to be very, very interesting choice. You know, 12 personnel, you know, with the Detroit, you know, I know they ran a lot, but, you know, Sam Laporta out there. And then, you know, before that, they traded away TJ Hawkins, which I think, you know, he has done, you know, nicely in Minnesota. But, you know, the influence that, you know, Ben Johnson has on the Bears team, you know, whereas as an offensive coordinator, he was probably one of the few coaches, you know, who has voices. And I don't know how much of an influence he had in that Lions decision to get rid of TJ Hawkinson and draft, you know, Sam Laporta in 2023. And, you know, Laporta has been a very good player. There's no question about that. He has killed the Bears ever since he was drafted, too, the last 2 years. So, you know, I'm very curious, you know, maybe is this it for, you know, Cole Kmet? You know, will he be run out of town? Because, you know, you get Tyler Warner on the cheaper contract, certainly as a rookie deal. But then, you know, you're getting rid of Cole Kmet, who really never flourished because of all the, you know, changes in the coaching staff and whatnot. And, you know, the offensive system that really never gave him the opportunity. And I'm very, very curious to see, you know, what they do, because I think over a tight end, as Nicholas said here, the offense could definitely use a speedy wide receiver. And I totally agree with that. But this year's offense, unfortunately, this year's draft doesn't have a lot of good wide receivers that will be, you know, selected in the, you know, in the first round. And Ted McMillan and Marcus Golden, Emika Egbuena from Ohio State. I'm probably butchering his name there. Those are the 3 receivers that are considered in the first round category, but they're not exactly known as a burner by any stretch of the imagination. Nicholas said Kmet is a good blocker besides a good pass catcher, and I agree. You know, I think Kmet is not a Travis Kelce type. We all know that. So, but he is a good player in his own right. That, you know, certainly deserves a you know, a better, you know, opportunity, and hopefully he will get that with Ben Johnson calling plays now. Let's see. Offensive line, do you still feel like the Bears are, you know, outside of Membo and Campbell, you know, and then Calvin Banks, who is a better probably fit as a left tackle, but certainly has a lot of work that needs to be done. Let's say, for example, if the Bears take a tackle, okay, Calvin Banks, Will Campbell, even Ahmad Member at number 10. Excuse me. Rishab, what do you do with, you know, Braxton Jones? Do you feel like, you know, that Paul's words about bringing in a competition means that Braxton Jones might be traded? And do you still feel like that's a risky move considering Jones's experience?
Yeah, it's really tough to say because I think you would want to trade him ASAP to get as much draft compensation as possible, but you also can't risk the season going bad if the player that you picked at number 10 just turns out to be a bust. Because at least Braxton Jones can be a solid starter. Like he's at least an average tackle, and like for any offense, having an average offensive tackle is still a pretty big asset. So um personally, what I would do is still keep Braxton this year, just have him compete against the young player we select at number 10. And if Braxton wins that job, then maybe you can sit that player that you selected number 10 for a year, or you can move them to guard if injuries happen, or like whatever the case is. Like I still think you should keep Braxton because he's too big of an asset to this team, even being like in average level tackle. But if we do draft a tackle at number 10, I can guarantee you Braxton is not getting re-signed next year because he's going to be way too expensive for the Bears to keep. Like he's probably going to be at least $25 million per year, which sounds crazy to some people, but there's been lesser tackles that have been paid that much money, just last offseason. Like good tackles do not hit free agency. So it's tough to say what you would do right now, but I think the Bears would probably keep Braxton, and then next year let him walk and maybe get a compensatory pick, maybe like a third round pick or a fourth round pick in the following draft, which is what would probably happen based on the contract he's going to be getting. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But this is why it's kind of tough to see me, it's tough to see the Bears drafting a tackle that high, in my opinion, just because it's like I feel like it's just like Braxton is the average level tackle, right? Unless you see a superstar level tackle, if that is Will Campbell, then sure, select him. But I don't see a superstar level tackle in Calvin Banks. But that's just my opinion. If Ben Johnson disagrees, then I'm totally fine with that because he knows more football than I do. But we'll see what happens.
Understood. My guest tonight is Rishab Skiri from the YouTube's DaWindyCity Production channel, the Bears YouTuber, joining me on the Double 18 podcast live stream edition, talking about the Chicago Bears and the NFL draft, which is 8 days from 8 days away, a week from tomorrow night. So let's see. What other needs do you feel like the Bears are kind of like needs to be filled, whether it's first round, second round, or even a third round, that the first two nights that needs to be filled? I kind of think that edge is still very much high, edge rusher across Montez Sweat, even though they added Deo Odiengbo. I don't think you could probably make him a full-time defensive end by any stretch. I think there's going to be another a player that needs to be drafted and included in the the defensive line rotation. Certainly, Grady Jarrett is already 32, and asking him to play pretty much 80-90% of the snap is kind of not a good way to keep him effective, of course. I could also see the safety being a sneaky need, of course. Jaquan Brisker's concussion is a huge concern. One more big hit certainly is going to put his career at risk, if not already. And then the running back, if Ashton Genty is gone, this year's draft, fortunately, is deep enough to, you could draft somebody in the second round. And, the Bears thankfully have two of them, 39 and 41. 39, of course, being the Carolina pick. That's the last pick that the Bears are getting from that, the big trade that they swung, with Carolina 2 years ago. And, this being the last draft pick that they got from Carolina that high, you got to be able to make the most of it. So, at number 10, 39, or 41, whoever it is, Rishab, I think the Bears definitely going to have a solid shot at filling, all the needs that I just mentioned. What do you think?
I totally agree with everything you've said. Like, the Bears have so many picks in the top 75 this year, so you get 4 impact starters right there. And they do have needs at running back, like you mentioned. 1, 2, safety is only a need because Jaquan Brisker gets injured every single year, and Kevin Byard is old. So that's why that's the need. But you probably don't have to draft safety too high. You could even draft one in with the 3rd round pick, or maybe even the 4th, or well, we don't have a 4th round pick this year because of the Keenan Allen trade. But with the 5th pick, you can probably draft a safety too. Like, it doesn't have to be in the top 75, but regardless, we do have the option if we want to. And also offensive and defensive line. Like, I still think that interior offensive line is a need because the depth that we have is not great, I would say.
Right.
And what's the right guard's name? Jonah Jackson. He had a bad year last year. He got injured too as well. So you're banking on him to return back to Pro Bowl status. But if he doesn't, then you need another option just in case. And I don't know if the Bears have that option right now. So I think getting a guard in round 2 or round 3 potentially would make a lot of sense. And D-line too, like anywhere on the D-line, another edge rusher probably we could use, another defensive tackle we could use as well, because they're getting injured. Billings is old, and Trevon Dexter could play some edge this year. You saw him slim down a lot this year. Like, he could very well just be an edge this year with how slim he seems like he is, and how athletic he is. So it'll be interesting to see what else the Bears do beyond that. I think tight end 2 could also be, a need as well. Not so much in the 1st round. Like, I feel like, that's why we want Tyler Warren right now, but maybe in rounds 2, 3, or 5, if you do want to go after another tight end to play, behind Cole Kmet, that could be an option. But aside from that, the Bears don't have crazy needs this year. Like, it's a pretty good roster as it stands entering the NFL draft, which is why I feel like the Bears have the flexibility to draft a running back in the top 10 if they want to, because we've already done so much work in free agency on the offensive and defensive lines where we don't have to draft that at pick number 10, but we could still use some more depth, because depth is very big in the NFL when injuries happen all the time. You saw the Eagles, they won the Super Bowl because they had so many top drafted players on the offensive and defensive line. So
exactly,
we'll see what the Bears do, but I'm very optimistic that we're going to fill in a lot of holes this year.
Yeah, I'm very curious, because let's kind of do the our own version of the mock draft right now, because there are 9 teams ahead of the Bears. I did this with the Nick Whalen last week, just kind of discussing what the Chicago Bears are going to be doing. So I'm going to do that with you as well. So number 1, I think we can all agree it's Cam Ward going to Tennessee at this point, barring a massive trade, which I don't think is happening. Yeah. Let's see. Number 2 is my good Cleveland Browns, which my good co-host Ken Fang is obviously probably trying to figure out, who they're exactly drafting right now. Let's kind of put ourselves as a Browns at number 2. I think drafting Shadir Sanders at this point seems like a very long shot at best right now. Ken, excuse me, I apologize for calling you Ken, because Ken is a Browns fan. Rishab, if you're the Browns, who are you picking here at number 2?
I would say Abdul Carter probably. Probably makes the most sense because he's a superstar, trenches player, and you can always use more help in the trenches. So I would go Abdul Carter.
Yeah, this is a very interesting pick here, because I think the draft kind of starts here, because we know Cam Ward is going to be picked at number 1 overall anyway. So the number 2, Cleveland, that's where they are starting. And I could see Abdul Carter being number 2. Abdul Carter, one side, and then Myles Garrett on the other side. That's a very good defensive, pass rush that I think, you got several more years of, Myles Garrett in his prime, and then you got, Abdul Carter on the other end. You got to be able to, rush the quarterback for Cleveland to even be remotely, stay competitive, because obviously the quarterback situation isn't exactly ideal. They added Kenny Pickett and then re-signed Joe Flacco, which I believe they should have done that, in the first place. When Flacco had a miracle, backup role in 2023 in helping them get to the playoffs. They should have at least kept them, in my opinion. So, yeah, but I don't think Shadir Sanders is worth being the number 2 pick, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's either Abdul Carter or maybe even Travis Hunter, one of those guys. But I'll go with Abdul Carter right there. Let's see. Number 3, I believe it's the New York Giants. This is another team that needs a quarterback. There was a report that they're actually doing some private workouts with Shadir Sanders again. I don't know if this was something that was forced upon by the ownership, the Maras, or not. Do you buy what they're trying to do? Do you buy that, or do you feel like that's a kind of a smoke screen, forcing teams to move up, or do you feel like somebody else is being picked here at number 3?
Oh, I actually buy it. I think it's kind of similar to the Bears drafting Justin Fields the final year of Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy.
Yeah. It's a desperation move. Yes,
they're so desperate, they're gonna get the quarterback. I really do think Shadir Sanders is gonna be a Giant, even if he doesn't, deserve to be a top 10 pick. I think he will be a top 10 pick because the Giants will just be worried about saving their jobs, like the coach and the GM.
Right. They're just basically repeating what the Bears did 3 years, 4 years ago. Yes.
At least they don't.
It's either Shadir Sanders or I'm going to say, you know what, this is a smokescreen. I'll probably go with another fellow, Colorado player. I think Travis Hunter would be a pretty good pick there. I think he said that if he can't play both ways, or if he can no longer play, he'll probably quit NFL. That's a pretty bold statement right there for somebody who's about to pull off Shohei Ohtani in the NFL there. But at least in the New York bright lights, he'll have all the attention to be able to play both sides, so the fans will at least have some sort of a interest. He doesn't have to be the big, the number 1 receiver, because they already have Malik Neighbors, thankfully. So he could be like the number 2, number 3 receiver to start with. And then on the defensive side, as a cornerback, the Giants are pretty good with, let me think, Paulson Adebo, who they signed from the Saints, coming off an injury. And then I forgot the name of the player, Banks, who they drafted back in 2023 in the first round, who's a somewhat decent cornerback. So you have, cornerbacks that you can rotate and, to be able to ease the transition, of playing both sides, which obviously is going to tax your body. You can't do that in college, because obviously the competition in the NFL is far more greater and it's more demanding in terms of traveling and everything. So I could see Travis Hunter here more so than Shadir Sanders at number 3. Number 4, New England. I know a lot of the names have been thrown around there, but I really think that this is where they get tackle, Will Campbell or even Ahmad Membu. One of those guys, I have a feeling they go here, because much like the Bears, they need to protect their asset in Drake May, who was, sacked quite a lot, unfortunately. Not as much as Caleb, but I think he was still sacked like in the 50s range, 50 times in that range, which obviously, if you keep getting sacked 50 times every year, it's going to start adding up and you become less effective. Do you agree with the tackle selection here?
I agree with that. I think this is going to be a tackle for the Patriots. They just don't have a good offensive line right now. If you look at their offensive line, it's just players that people will not even recognize. Their D-line, they already did add some talent in the offseason in free agency, but
defensively, they spent a lot, yes.
They didn't really do anything on the offensive line. So I think it makes too much sense to go O-line here. I'm thinking probably Will Campbell or maybe Armin Membu, because he's more longer arms a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. I will add that they added Ryan Moses, Morgan Moses, excuse me, who was a tackle who played with the Jets last year. He is a right tackle guy. So I think they do need a left tackle guy in that position there. Number 5 is Jacksonville. It seems as though the last 10 years they're always seems to be drafting in a top 5, top 10 with no real discerning results, with the exception of a couple of times they went to the playoffs. 2017, they shot the Pittsburgh and went to the AFC Championship. 2022, against the Los Angeles Chargers, they came back from a big lead, to get past the Chargers before they lost to the Chiefs, I believe, in the second round there. Boy, this is going to be interesting pick here, because I got to tell you, they need both sides of the ball, or help on both sides, I should say. Excuse me. And whoever they pick, I say, yeah, a pick really makes sense here, because it could be Mason Graham, to fill to bolster their defensive line. And it could be whoever the tackle that New England did not pick, because they need to protect Trevor Lawrence much better. Who are you thinking here?
I'm thinking it's probably Mason Graham. I think he's one of the blue chip players in this draft. So yeah, it's just like from that point of view, you can always use defensive line help. Mason Graham had a really good career there at Michigan, and I just think that he's probably going to be a top 5, top 8 pick, at the very worst. So yeah, he's a good football player.
Absolutely. Now, I will add that this is where I think some mock drafts have Tyler Warren even going there at number 5, because they did lose Evan Ingram, the tight end, who put decent numbers when he was with Jacksonville after he left to sign with Jacksonville from the New York Giants, and now they do definitely need a tight end there. So if Tyler Warren goes here at number 5, do not be shocked there, because they already have Brian Thomas Jr., who's a very good who's a good target, and obviously they need somebody that can also draw the defensive backs outside of Brian Thomas is there too. So it could be either one of the players, Mason Graham, one of the tackles, or Tyler Warren here. But you say it's one of the tackles.
Number 5, you're saying? Graham. Yeah. I said Mason Graham. I could see the tackles. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go with the tackle here. I say Will Campbell get picked by, New England at 4. I'll say maybe Ahmad Member at 5 here, just for the good measure. 6 is the Raiders. Now, this is going to be the pick that I think we, the Bears fans, will be taking a real close look here, because this is where I think Ashton Jeanty will go. That's the highest I can see him being picked. Pete Carroll wants his own Marshawn Lynch. I think Pete Carroll wants somebody who can play immediately. He doesn't have the patience of drafting a rookie quarterback and waiting for him to develop because of his advanced age. That's why they traded for Geno Smith, even though he and the Seahawks kind of had a bit of a fallout, unfortunately, after 2023 season. And Geno Smith was available for a couple of draft picks. Do you see this is where Ashton Jeanty be picked, and we have to kind of accept that as a Bears fan, in your opinion?
I think there's still a chance they pick offensive linemen, because they can still really use offensive line help. If you look at the offensive line, there's still holes on it. So I didn't have Armin Membu be selected yet, or actually I did at number 4 to the Patriots. So I'll have Will Campbell being selected here. I think I still think that there's a chance that they're going to go offensive line, because Pete Carroll also realizes that you still need good offensive linemen. Like,
right,
football's still one of the trenches for the most part, and I feel like the Raiders could get a good running back with their second round pick potentially, where they probably can't get an offensive lineman as good as Membu or Campbell that high. So maybe that's me being optimistic, but I still think there's a chance that Raiders don't go Ashton Jeanty. And there's a report, out there, that Membu
Tony Pauline, he posted something about the Raiders interested in Membu at number 6. Now, I will say that compared to the Bears offensive line versus the Raiders, I think the Bears offensive line has been significantly upgraded. And as great of a running back Ashton Genty is, I know I posted something about him, tweeting and posting about draft somebody who can break tackles a little bit earlier. You're still going to need to have a great offensive line to open the holes for you, and I'm very curious if they do ended up taking Ahmad Mimbu here at number 6. That would be great, but I am fully prepared as a Bears fan. The worst case scenario. We're used to it, unfortunately, pretty much. So I'm going to say Ashton Genty gets picked here at number 6. You think it will be an offensive tackle, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it could be Ashton Genty, but I'll go off here, yeah.
All right. Here at number 7, the Jets. This is where things are going to get really, really interesting because a lot of the top players are starting to get picked, and I don't know if somebody wants to move up here just to take what is that? A Shadur Sanders. It will be very, very interesting, but the Jets could draft a defensive lineman here. Because it's Aaron Glenn, who is the new head coach, former defensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions. And they could also draft another offensive lineman too. They already drafted a left tackle, Olu Fashanu. As I said earlier, Morgan Moses left to sign with the division rival Patriots. They could also draft a tight end here, Tyler Warren. Obviously, they lost Jake Conklin, I believe his name, who left to sign with Los Angeles Chargers. They also need another reliable weapon here. So give me your pick here at number 7 for the New York Jets. I know it's a difficult one here.
I'll probably go Tyler Warren. I don't think I had him being selected yet.
Okay.
So I'd probably go Tyler Warren. That also reminds me, I think I forgot to select Travis Hunter anywhere. So
yeah.
I mean, if Travis Hunter is available, then he'd 100% be the pick here. But no, yeah. If Warren is available, I think he makes the most sense here. Could also be offensive line if Memphis here. I think that would be a pick that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, either Warren or offensive lineman, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I'm very curious here because I just definitely see somebody who could be reached here for, say, Shamar Stewart. This could be the place where they could ended up picking him. I could also see somebody like Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan's being drafted here because they could also use another corner alongside Sauce Gardner. I know DJ Reed ended up leaving to sign, actually, if I'm not mistaken, with the New England Patriots. So they do need a depth there at the cornerback. I could definitely see if Tyler Warren somehow he's there, they need another weapon to, help Justin Fields get the most out of himself here as well. The Panthers at 8, I could see this is basically, somebody like Jalen Walker, the all-purpose defensive player from, University of Georgia. I could see him, I know somebody may have linked him to the Bears, thinking he could be like our own version of Micah Parsons, but I think, he is more of a pure linebacker, to make him like an edge rusher seems a little bit too rich, at least as a rookie. Maybe Michael Williams could be also available there as well. This is an interesting position for New England. They could also draft another wide receiver, to help, get the most out of Bryce Young. McMillan, that's the guy that I could see. Who do you think for Carolina here?
I would say Michael Williams, potentially, or Jalen Walker. Like any of the guys you mentioned, I think could go here. Even Mike Green could go here as well if he doesn't have any off the field concerns as much as we think he does, because he does have top 10 talent. So if the Panthers want to take a risk on somebody like that, I think that makes sense. But it's really hard to guess the Panthers pick because they could probably go like 5 or 6 different ways.
Absolutely, Michael Williams would be a pretty good choice here. I think they need defense or even offense. This is a place where I think, Drew Canales is an offensive-minded guy, but their general manager Dan Morgan, who was a phenomenal linebacker coming out of college in Miami before his career got cut short. I think his defensive background, I think, might win him over. Not necessarily would lead to a fallout between two guys, but I could definitely see Michael Williams. But I'm going to go with Jalen Walker because I think that's the guy that they're rumored to be very, very in love with. So I'm going to go with Jalen Walker here. Number 9, the New Orleans Saints. Now, this is an interesting one because we've been hearing some crazy stuff that's coming out of the reports down there. Derek Carr might not play next year because of the phantom shoulder injury that just popped up. Now, there are people saying that he doesn't like, being at New Orleans because, he has to mentor a young guy and, he doesn't want to do that. And that's why the injuries just somehow popped up or something out of nowhere. And that he doesn't like New Orleans all that much. Come to think of it, I don't know how often you saw, David Carr, but he always seems like the guy who has a smug face or the guy who's not happy at all, And I can kind of understand the, if those reports are indeed true there. This is where I'm starting to hear rumors that, Shedeur Sanders is even, being linked here. If you're the Saints, would you even poll, for Shedeur Sanders, or is that too even rich for New Orleans, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think for the Saints it would make sense because I don't know. At the same time, I feel like it might be a better move to just tank this year and then try to get a top quarterback next year because they have the next draft is a lot better for quarterbacks, I would say, at the top. So I would do that if I was them. Like, just tank this year, reset the salary cap situation. The salary cap situation has been so bad for like 5+ years now at this point. So I think it would make sense to just tank and just pick best player available that's not a quarterback. But knowing that they have a new offensive-minded head coach, I think he might want the quarterback. So if Shedeur Sanders is available, I could 100% see that being the pick for the Saints, just to fill some seats in the stadium too, because nobody's going to want to watch who was a Spencer Rattler. That's going to be a rough watch.
That is true. Okay, let's kind of recap our first 9 picks, since I unfortunately forgot to kind of go over this. So I apologize for doing this, Rishab. Cam Ward number 1. We're in agreement, right?
Yeah, I would 100% say yeah.
All right, number 2, both of us, we said, I think, Abdul Carter at number 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, number 3 for the Giants, I said Travis Hunter. Who did you pick for the Giants here at number 3?
I did Shedeur Sanders, but I'll trade to Travis Hunter.
Okay, you'll go here, Travis Hunter as well. I'm putting in an Excel sheet right now, so I probably should have done that. Okay, number 4, New England. You said Mimbu, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I go with Will Campbell here. Number 5, Jacksonville. You said Mason Graham, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But this is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to say, I'm going to pick Mimbu here. Number 6, the Raiders. You said Will Campbell, right? Because I think that's the one tackle available. Okay, I'm going to say Ashton Genty. Excuse me. Number 7, the Jets. You said Tyler Warren, right?
Yep.
I remember,
Yeah.
Now it's starting to make sense now. Tyler Warren at number 7. Oh, boy, this is a very interesting one. I could say, all right, you know what? I'm going to go crazy here, and I'm going to say Shamar Stewart here.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
I know. Number 8, let's see. Who was picking number 8 here? The Carolina Panthers. You said Michael Williams.
Williams, yeah.
Okay. And I said Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Number 9, the Saints. You would say Sanders, right? You said Sanders, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is interesting. I haven't even put Mason Graham at any.
Oh,
for me, this is interesting. Ooh.
Damn,
And you know what? I haven't even had Tyler Warren picked either at this point.
We found the one scenario in which Mason Graham is available at 10.
You know what? Yeah, I'll make this one. I'll pick Tyler Warren here from the Saints at number 9 because they need weapons here.
Okay.
No matter who's at quarterback. Okay, so number 10, the Bears. Okay, so you still have Genty.
Yep.
For you, at least in your scenario, you still have Genty. You would pick Genty, right?
Yeah, I would pick him without question. I would run up to the podium and make this pick. This is dream scenario for the Bears. I think they go Genty here.
Okay. Now, if Mason Graham here, let's say in my case, Rishab, you have Mason Graham still available.
Yeah.
Membu and Campbell are gone.
Yeah.
Okay, Shamar is gone. Okay, Jalen Walker gone. Tyler Warren is still gone. You have Kelvin Banks. You still have Mason Graham. You're going to pick Graham here, right?
Yeah. I would definitely go Graham at that point. That would be if Mason Graham and Ashton Genty are on the board. I might even prefer Graham over Genty because Mason Graham is like another blue chip type defensive player. So yeah, in that scenario, I would 100% go Graham.
Okay, that would make sense so much there.
Yeah.
Graham, I think he does have his shortcomings. I'm not going to lie. There were questions about whether he's a 300-pound guy. I think he was checked in at 296 or something like that. He's got 32-inch arms, which obviously compared to, say, defensive lineman, you can kind of get by with it, because he's an interior guy. Obviously, I think this is going to be very, very interesting, just what scenario will the Bears do? You have Graham, Genty at 10. Well, that's a huge problem to have. And, I think there will be half of the fans will be incredibly upset, or maybe more than half, because they want Genty.
Yeah.
I think half of them will be somewhat happy because it's Mason Graham and that the Bears didn't, reach for the running backs, even though the position seems to have been, getting a comeback here thanks to Derek Henry and, of course, Saquon Barkley with the Eagles this past year. Prompt Phenomenon says 9 starters on defense locked in contracts through the end of 2026 seasons. The only positions not locked in are 2 safety positions. Yeah. We talked about safety being maybe somewhat of a sneaky need there. Phenomenon. Jaquan Brisker, unfortunately, is one hit away from maybe having another serious concussion that could seriously impact his career, even life after football, unfortunately, with the CTE and everything. Kevin Byard is 31-32 very, very shortly. So, yes, I do agree. That's a position of need that they definitely could use another, depth, because you only have Simone Biles' husband, Jonathan Owens, and, Hicks. I forgot his first name, but those are the 2 backups, unfortunately. So you definitely need to start planning for the future after 2025 season. That could be probably addressed in one of the 2nd-round picks or maybe in the 3rd-round picks, depending on who is available there. Thanks for the question, Phenomenon. Let me close out with a couple of things. Once again, my guest tonight, of course, is Rishab Skiri, the very good friend of ours from DaWindyCity Productions YouTube channel. Would you move up in this year's draft to get Genty or Graham, or you would say no, absolutely not?
Depends how far we have to move up. If it's only moving up to like 8 or 9, which would only cost you like
maybe a 3rd-round pick,
then I'd be okay with it for sure if Genty is on the board or Mason Graham is on the board. But going into the top 5, I don't think I would do that. Because
even for Abdul Carter, you wouldn't go that far.
Oh well, for Abdul Carter, I would. Like for him, I would definitely make an exception because I think he's a top 2 player in the draft this year, probably top 1 player in the draft this year. So if you get the best player in the draft that late, I would 100% do that. Like I would be even willing to give a 2nd-round pick for that, like one of the 2nd-round picks we have. I'd be cool with doing that, but I can't see doing that for Ashton Genty. I think that wouldn't make sense to draft a running back that high and also have to pay another tax on top of that too. I think that'd be a little bit too much. But for Abdul Carter, I would, if anybody wants to back. Yeah.
Right. God, I hope you're right, because I don't like giving up one of the second round picks just to move up that high. Because Because if I'm getting something, like say from 10 to 4 or 3, I understand, I get it. You have to probably move up that far. But if we can get like say a fourth round pick, which we don't have in return, I think that might be able to at least offset the cost of it. Especially in this year's draft where the top end talents are very very scarce. Scarce. You got to be very very careful about that. So I think Graham or Carter, one of those guys, or even Hell, if they like the tackles, one of them, bad enough, you never know what's going to happen. So very, very interesting to see what happens after, the first 3 picks and how that, pan out. So that's an interesting scenario. All right, we're going to end this conversation. By the way, thanks for doing this again, Rishab. Did you read the Esquire interview on Caleb Williams?
No, actually. What was that about?
Okay, so it was a fashion, piece that he was appeared on, and actually I did write something about the Caleb. He said something about that was quite interesting in the Esquire magazine, that he was doing a fashion shoot and excuse me, and then also doing the interview. That was interviewed. Let me share the article here for those who are not familiar with. It's right here, Esquire.com sports. This is the link right here. I'm going to share with everybody here so that they can actually read this. Right here. So this is the link for those who want to, copy paste it. Hopefully this will be that they can read it here. So basically, he talked about something which I think a lot of us pretty much knew. He talked about the Hail Mary game. That was like the breaking point of the team. He did also mention, when I got home, I got in my bed, I just dropped a few tears, and that was just so beat up mentally, physically, and spiritually. He talked about that game being such I say maybe a turning point of last season because of the inexcusable experience. The inexcusable comments that Matt Eberflus made about giving up a couple of easy completions.
Oh, yeah.
That made it so easy for the Washington and, Jaden Daniels to complete that 65 or 55, 65-yard Hail Mary, which we all know that was caused by, Tyreek Stevenson's stupidity, of course, largely due to that. But you don't give up easy completions and then say that completions do not matter because a Hail Mary is a Hail Mary and shit like that. So there was something that which I ended up writing an article on, because he mentioned about, in this day and age, you don't want to be buddy with the fellow quarterback or fellow players from opposite end of the spectrum. And he said that he wanted to maintain that edge, because he believes that the NFL has become kind of like a more friendly, with the other players, and that he wants to, beat the players on the opposite end badly, so to speak, which kind of ruffles a feather, in the wrong way, of course. Oh, this is a comment here. I think the NFL has become very friendly, and I don't necessarily want to be friends because I want to keep that competitive advantage. Now, I wrote that on my fan-sided article that this is kind of like a, somewhat of a double-edged sword, because this is like a bulletin board material for, opposing teams in the offseason whenever the Bears face whoever they play next year. But at the same time, if the opposing teams, shit on the Bears and Caleb Williams, because, he's so been a target of, unfair criticism because of the nail painting and also crying in college game in the stands with his family. We all know that, Rishab. What do you think of the comment that he made? Do you find that to be, this is kind of like the more of a mature process that he's ready to elevate his game, or do you find it to be this is somewhat of a unnecessary bulletin board material that you give opposing team considering what he went through in the rookie season?
No, I like it. I think it makes sense. I mean, all the top quarterbacks speak this way. Like, I'm sure Tom Brady has also said similar things. I'm sure Patrick Mahomes also, like, when you see him on the football field, he has the same mentality. Like, I don't think we should be concerned about it that much. I like that he's confident, that he's wanting to put himself out there, and like this is the type of mentality that more people like want to see in football too.
Right.
NFL still has it to some extent, but like a sport like basketball could really use this mentality too. Like everybody just friends with each other. Which
Right. Michael Jordan was like that. He was very ruthless in the what was that documentary? The oh man, the Last Dance. The Last Dance, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Right. We saw the ruthless side of Michael Jordan, and I think that's the kind of mentality he wants to adopt, obviously, because he wants to be great. And at the end of the day, when competitors compete against each other, and then at the end of the day, when they shake hands and show respect, I think that's still fine and dandy. And I totally get it. You don't want to be, throwing, punches or kicking against each other, during games. That's obviously that doesn't have any place in any, in any sport. But I don't think that's not what we're looking at. So I totally agree. This is a new side of Caleb that we're starting to see. He went through so much shit last year with, Matt Eberflus's incompetency as well as Shane Waldron's, and yet he survived in all of this, and I like that. And Ben Johnson is adopting that mentality that you want to win big, and I do believe that the Bears will do that, and I absolutely have none whatsoever. There's no problem with this comment. Excuse me for a moment.
No, you're good.
I apologize. I've been dealing with this nasty coughing. And I also want to point out that, Rishab, you and I were there that night when we watched the game between the Bears and the Texans, where, the Texans, after they beat it, I think this comment kinds of come from, if you remember, C.J. Stroud was trying to little bro.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, which I know CJ vehemently denied it, but I do believe that comment is coming from somebody trying to disrespect you, or at least he felt like CJ was disrespecting him, right?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like even if CJ didn't like intend to do that, that's basically what like it came across as. And that's why I feel like whatever Caleb is saying here, just like I don't know how anybody could hate on it. Like if it was somebody like CJ Stroud that made these comments, or Mahomes that made these comments, I feel like everybody would be, on.
Oh no. Huh. Rishab, are you okay? Oh, hold on. Folks, I apologize. I don't know what happened to Rishab. Let me text him. You okay? I mean, he can come back at any point. I don't know what happened here, but I'm getting a text message shortly from Rishab here. Just a moment. I don't know if he was called in to help pick up his family member or whatnot, but let me see what happens here. I apologize for the extended time here. It's almost 11 o'clock Eastern, maybe 10 o'clock Central. Oh, his laptop unfortunately died. That's okay. All right. On that note, let's end the show. I apologize. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. 1,100 people for joining us this much. Let me see. Rishab is getting back his laptop on power. Celeste, thank you very much, as always. Nicholas, thank you, as always. Joker, Prompt Phenomenon, thank you. Sorry for butchering your name there. Thank you for asking us all kinds of great questions, as always. Thank you very much for a lot of the guests coming from Rishab's page from X for joining me tonight. Once again, next week, next Thursday, it will be the draft night. Rishab, in case if you're joining us very, very late tonight, Rishab will not be able to attend the draft. He will be doing a traditional live stream, just like we have done the last couple of years. Excuse me, Rishab is back on again. Yeah, I was kind of concerned you got lost there for something there.
My laptop died. I saw the low battery warning pop up, and I forgot to plug it in fully.
Understandable. But listen, Rishab, thank you very much for joining me once again. I think this is a good time to end our live stream. It's been a while since we did this, since we did last. And I was just telling those who just joining us late tonight, Rishab will not be able to attend the draft party or draft up in Green Bay next Thursday, like it was originally planned. So instead, you'll be doing the live stream with Phil's, and then I forgot the other gentleman, Dave Dotz, who thankfully kind enough I forgot to mention Dave for giving him a shout out for joining me a little bit earlier and sending us. Dave and Charles Phillip will be doing their live stream up in Green Bay. You'll be joining them as well, right?
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Probably on the last day I will, yeah.
Okay. So, Rishab will be doing live stream on Thursday night, the very first night of the draft, first round. I'll be hopefully joining at some point, regardless of whether the Bears pick or not. So I'd be honored to join Rishab's live stream as well. Any final words, Rishab, about the draft or anything else that's on your mind right now?
No, man, it's been great to be on. It's been a long time. Cannot wait for the NFL draft. We'll definitely make a episode as well. Probably the week after the NFL draft. Recapping some of the picks, but yeah, really excited to see the picks being made and see all the new faces being introduced to the Chicago Bears fan base. And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the draft is like the last hurdle that all the fans can have to kind of get over before we can start really, really thinking about football. Because after the draft, you have the mini camp, rookie camp, mini camp OTAs and stuff like that, and then the actual training camp. So there's several more months ahead of us. But once the draft is over, then you can really start to think about how good this team is going to be, and we could also start to finally focus on the training camps and what Ben Johnson and his staff is going to put in for both offense and defense. Listen, Rishab, once again, thank you very much for joining me. Look forward to being on your live stream next Thursday night, and then talk about the draft and do some live recap with not just the Bears but also on the other 31 teams and how that's going to impact the Bears moving forward, and also what kind of players will be available for the Bears in Friday night when the day 2 happens. Have a wonderful evening, Rishab, and thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Over 1,100 people joining us. For Rishab Skiri, I'm Stephen Negishi. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday night. Oh, by the way, and I plan to do a live stream with my regular co-host, Ken Fang, this Sunday night. So make sure to follow us on X for the actual update. Rishab, good night. We'll see you next Thursday night. Thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy the rest of your week.